handed out a document which we're putting into the Belfast Telegraph tonight for distribution around the province. Again, it's on our election theme of moving forward, and I think perhaps that is now in a double-barreled form, in that we're wanting politically to see things moving forward. We've made a good start in terms of devolution. We now have stable political structures. People don't want to go back to the conflict and division that we have had, and they want to resist those who through terrorism would seek to take us back, or those who through the political process would seek to take us back. But I think the issue that has come throughout this election campaign in relation to the economy indicates that we would need to take this province forward economically. We have consistently indicated that the size of the UK deficit is such that hard decisions have to be taken, that we have to reduce the debt of the United Kingdom, and that clearly that means that we have to employ one of four mechanisms to do that, or any combination of those four. That means a reduction in public expenditure, an increase in taxes, sale of assets, or growth in the economy. Those are the only four ways that you can deal with the deficit. The big issue that has to be determined is, first of all, when you start making cuts in public expenditure, whether those are planned, whether we prepare for any cut in public expenditure to ensure that it's not frontline services that are impacted. And that's where the Tory Ulster Unionist policy, I think, is immensely dangerous for Northern Ireland. They plan, after having started a financial year, to cut a net £6 billion out of the UK economy. And I've heard some wriggling going on today on the radio and indeed elsewhere, where the Ulster Unionist Party don't quite want to admit how much it is that Northern Ireland would have to divvy up as part of that £6 billion. However, what they seem to forget is that it isn't a matter of choice for the Tories in terms of how much they would punish Northern Ireland. It is done by a formula. The Barnett formula decides exactly how much Northern Ireland would have to provide. And under the formula, making the assumption that the Tories keep their commitment that they will not cut defence spending, the Northern Ireland contribution would be £200 million. That's under the Barnett formula. And £200 million on top of 3% cuts that we have already had in this financial year. Now, I'm chairing executive meetings at which we're trying to get £20 million here and there over the course of recent months. And sometimes I felt as if I was a playgroup leader, seeing the tantrums around the table at taking a couple of £1 million out of a minister's budget. Now, we have, assuming policing and justice is ring-fenced, we have 50% of our budget taken up by health. That means that the Tories are proposing that £100 million would be taken out of the health budget. On the figures that Michael McGimsey gave us previously, that means that over 1,000 jobs in the health service, nurses, porters, doctors, those jobs will be lost. It means that we will probably lose another 1,000 jobs elsewhere in public service. Teachers, classroom assistants, their jobs will be lost. And frontline public services that we all rely on will have to be reduced, scaled down, or lost completely. Now that's what it means. And it means that because if you're at They say they will bring their emergency budget forward 50 days, within 50 days of taking office. So about a third of the year will have gone, and suddenly you'll be bounced to make £200 million worth of savings, which is the equivalent of £300 million annually of savings. Now, you cannot do that if you have already got your spending plans operating. They're settled. Ministers know the money that they have at the present time. Their programmes are moving forward. And the only way that they will be able to get that kind of money is to go for the reduction of jobs and cutting out programmes. Now, if all of that wasn't bad enough, to then be told by David Cameron that Northern Ireland is to be picked on because the state is too large in Northern Ireland. The first thing I want to do, statistically, let me tell you this, that and we're talking about public sector employment. Public sector employment per head of population in Northern Ireland is about 12.5%. It isn't massively out of kilter with the rest of the United Kingdom. Wales, Scotland are around 11.5%. So we're not talking about a massive difference. So he picks on Northern Ireland and indicates pretty clearly that it is unsustainable to continue this level of public expenditure in Northern Ireland. That can only mean that we start reducing further public expenditure, but targeting Northern Ireland and the North East. And it's interesting that, having made the remark, he runs up to the North East yesterday to assure them, to calm them down, that he's not going to target them. Yet he was supposed to come to Northern Ireland and has backed out of it, not wanting to ease people in Northern Ireland. So we have the massive guaranteed cuts by the Tories of £200 million. And on top of that, we are going to be at the front line of any further cuts, where we especially will be targeted within the United Kingdom. Now, that's massively damaging for Northern Ireland. And I have to say that I'm deeply disappointed at their view on corporation tax. It doesn't take anyone to think too hard as to how you would get round the Azores ruling, which is what they said would be illegal according to Reg Empey. Maybe Reg has forgotten that he was a member of the executive that signed up to our submission to Varney on corporation tax. Maybe he's forgotten that we indicated that we could get round the Azores ruling, and he voted for that point of view when we put our submission to Varney. And it doesn't take anybody too long to think that if you have to take about 100 or 200 million out to allow corporation tax out of our budget, then you put it in at the other end. It's as simple as that, and you've got round the Azores ruling. So all you do is make a change to the Barnett funding, and you can get over the corporation tax. Why would you do it for Northern Ireland? Because Northern Ireland's economy has been held back for decades. And that's the thing that David Cameron doesn't seem to understand, that we have special circumstances in Northern Ireland. We're coming out of years of conflict and division. Our economy needs to be kick-started. There is a reliance on the public sector. There is an imbalance between private sector and public sector, but it actually costs money to make that difference, because you have to encourage the private sector, to build up the private sector, and it isn't simply a case of pulling down the public sector to the level of the private sector. You boost the private sector up. That's the way forward. So I think the Ulster Unionists are in a mess in relation to the economic policy. They are economically illiterate. They don't seem to understand the fact that if they do move on cutting public expenditure, that will have an impact on the recovery. It will send Northern Ireland back into recession. And those are the worst set of circumstances for our economy in Northern Ireland. We need to move forward, both politically and economically, and only the DUP has a clear vision as to how that can be done.